Hello, Facebook Live. Trevor Millar here as promised. I am in Squamish, British Columbia, and I'm continuing this Facebook Live video series with some information on Ibogaine, which is the medicine I work with at Liberty Root Therapy Limited, speaking about psychedelic therapy in general and trying to raise awareness around the incredible potential for psychedelic therapy itself. And I mentioned Prohibition in the title of this video as well, because I think Prohibition, if there's kind of one linchpin on how we can fix a whole bunch of the problems as related to legal and illegal drugs, it's focusing on prohibition and how prohibition really just doesn't work. It never has worked. It didn't work in the 1920s when they prohibited booze. It just made booze stronger and made booze more dangerous and blind people, and it fueled organized crime as well. And that hasn't changed at all with drug prohibition. I'll speak more about prohibition in further videos, but I at least wanted to plant the seed on this one. And just, let's just use common sense. The country with the most strict drug policies is the United States of America, and they also have the highest rate of drug abuse. So prohibition just doesn't work. Why? It's this old crusty thing that is causing death. Like, I don't blame opiates, I don't blame fentanyl, I don't blame the drugs themselves or the people themselves at all for all the deaths that are happening. 555 overdoses in British Columbia this year related to fentanyl. That's not fentanyl's fault, that's prohibition's fault. And I'll just leave it with this question. It looks like the drug industry, the illicit drug industry, is nearly $1 trillion a year industry. In Canada, I think it's close to a $10 billion a year industry based on a statistic I heard not long ago. Would you rather that be in control of Health Canada with the regulations and protocols that they have for purity? Or would you rather have that in the control of the Hells Angels or other organized crime? So I'll just leave it at that for prohibition right now, because that's, like I said, it's a linchpin. If we get rid of prohibition, we get rid of a lot of the problems around illicit drugs. So I've got, as promised, one of my very dear friends here. She is somebody that works with me at Liberty Root. She has for at least the past year.
Almost a year and a half.
Year and a half now. But I didn't meet her in that way. I met her because she was one of my clients. So I'm going to introduce her in a second here, and we're going to get a little bit of her story. In the meantime, if you are live with me right now, maybe go ahead and share this video so we can get some more people as we're actually doing the live stream. It looks like the video I did yesterday has already been seen about 1,500 times. So this is working to get the awareness out there, at least amongst my circle of friends. So at that, I would like to introduce you to Star.
Hi, y'all.
Hi, Star. So I'm going to kind of switch over to interview mode here. I'm going to turn my camera around and get a bit of Star's story. So let's do that. Oh, you look lovely.
Thank you.
All right, cool. So maybe you can start with your story. Maybe, when you came to me, you were an opiate addict. How did that start? How did opiates start in the first place? And how are opiates different than other drugs that you might have messed around with?
I think it came to opiates, I think, initially from a really young age. I had some addictions issues. I started drinking and using drugs. Drinking when I was around 9 or 10, and then using psychedelics, weed, whatever, kind of in the early teenage years. And by the time I was 16, I was using cocaine, and by the time I was 17, I was shooting heroin and cocaine. So how does that happen? I mean, a lack of coping skills to deal with trauma issues, things like that. It's a little different for everyone, but it's also the same for everyone
Mm-hmm.
who has these problems. Opiates, for me, everyone has something that just does what they're looking for. We're trying to fix something in ourselves that's broken, essentially. And everything that we try and put inside of us to take away that pain or is just we're trying to fix it. So for me, the thing that fixed it for me, at least initially, was heroin the most.
Yeah.
I mean, they all had a part. Drugs, alcohol, everything, but opiates were what I gravitated towards.
Yeah, and then you said at least initially, so at some point you realized they weren't working for you, and I imagine you tried to stop using opiates. Tell me about trying to stop using opiates compared to stopping other drugs.
Well, it's very difficult in a different way. It's physics. It's not just a psychological kind of thing. Not to say other drugs aren't difficult to stop using, but there's a physical aspect of it that's more intense and excruciating than anything else. When you use opiates and you try and stop using them, it's horrible. Yeah. It's really, really bad. And I tried for 19 years.
So tell me about that 19 years of trying to quit using opiates.
Well, like I said, so by the time I was about 18, I was fully strung out and on and off the street already. And, so I knew I knew somehow inside of me that wasn't what I was supposed to be doing here. I had more to give, and I couldn't get out of the hole. But I tried, and I tried everything. I've been to rehab 8 times. I've lived in a halfway house. I've had to withdraw from opiates in jail 5 times. All those...
In jail for drug-related things,
yeah.
I take it?
Yeah. And just petty things, that are all absolutely related to drug use and abuse. Yeah. So there was that. I quit on my own with help from a doctor. I've done medical detox. I did everything possible to try and stop. And I just couldn't. I could stop. I could go through the withdrawal. I've done that so many times. It's crazy. But then right away I would go back to using. Always. And feel so horrible about myself because of it.
Yeah.
And just feel all that shame and guilt and, and then finally to where that was it. I didn't have any more hope that I could do it. I think I fought for a really long time, and it got to the point where I knew that I just couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah. Can you tell me about methadone and explain what methadone is to people?
Yeah, I tried methadone as well. Methadone is supposed to be a tool to help you detox from opiates. Mm-hmm. That's what it should be used for. And if it's used that way, it can be really effective. It can be effective in stabilizing people who are just beyond any other forms of treatment. They've tried everything and they just can't stay off too. However, unfortunately, now, because of the way that the system is set up financially and as far as doctors getting money to prescribe methadone and all of that stuff, it's just turned into a horrific situation where people are getting put on methadone who've never even tried to quit drugs before, and they're addicted to methadone now for essentially forever, unless they're lucky enough to somehow get off and stay clean, which I think is impossible unless it's done in a really controlled way. It's just a mess. The whole methadone thing is a mess.
And is it true that to be off of heroin and on methadone, in some people's eyes, that's considered being clean?
Oh yeah, for sure, 100%.
Even though they still have to take a drug every day,
an opiate
every day, but because it's government prescribed,
then it's fine.
Since there's no prohibition on that,
right.
Then there's no stigma. They don't have to hustle for their dope anymore.
Yeah.
But the methadone seems to be worse for people than heroin even.
It can be a lot worse, and especially when you're looking at it unless you're on a very good dose, which I don't see happening a lot as far as people I know who are still on methadone, and for me, for sure, they have people overdosed. It makes you lethargic, you put on weight, you have no energy, you just feel shitty, and and you're tied to this thing in a different way.
Yeah.
But that all being said, I mean, it can be effective when used properly, like anything, but it's not being used properly.
Yeah. I've got no problem with any drugs at all. There's always a proper use for some. It's just the misuse, and especially when it becomes systemic misuse.
It's really not
like
good.
I've heard horror stories. It sounds horrible to me, but on the downtown east side of Vancouver, methadone clinics will incentivize going to their clinic by like giving away McDonald's gift cards.
Isn't
and
that
shit.
crazy?
It's insane.
Yeah.
And
That's just sickening, actually.
And there's a huge profit model there too, where pharmacies themselves, I've heard that they get $6,000 a year per patient that gets methadone from them on a daily basis. So,
well, I think the mills have to do with the mill. How much people are getting is involved in it too.
Yeah, for every extra milliliter prescribed, somebody's getting paid on all levels. So
no wonder everyone's overdosed, and no wonder it's just like, oh, you have it used to be, oh, you have an addiction or whatever. Let's try treatment. Let's go to treatment. That was the first step. Counseling, treatment, which is the most important step. Now they're just like, no, oh, you have a problem? Go on methadone forever. Basically, you'll need to be on this for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And that's slavery.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah. But very profitable slavery. Yeah.
Except they're not being very productive on the other side of it, but still.
Well, the person isn't. No.
But still, it's not right.
Yeah. All right. Tell me about Ibogaine. How did Ibogaine come on your radar? How'd you find Liberty Root? What happened there?
I was, like I said, I'd gotten to the end and I just had no more hope. I didn't want to live anymore. And so there was this thing, Ibogaine. You heard about it. No one really, a couple people know people who went or something back then, or know someone who did it in the addictions community, because it was a solution that wasn't it was a solution that we hadn't tried yet, or the potential to be. Because a lot of people who've been using forever have also been trying to quit forever. And so there was this thing that I hadn't tried, and I thought, well, that's it. I'm going to try it, and if it doesn't work, then I'm done. So.
What do you mean you're done?
I just wanted to die. I was going to kill myself. I was going to kill myself before I heard of Ibogaine, and the only reason I didn't is because there was one other thing left,
Wow.
Yeah. Even my mom, I even said it to my mom, like, if this doesn't work, like, I'm out. She understood.
Wow.
That's how fucked up it was.
Yeah. And then you found Liberty Root, a phone call led to a phone call, led to a phone number. I got on the phone with you. What happened from there?
I asked a few questions, and initially the price was, I didn't think I was going to be able to afford it. And then I just kind of thought about, like, broke it down, I mean, I would spend that money easily in a month and a half on drugs if I had it all at once. And this was my life, this was it. So I was gonna die, and what's money in comparison to that?
Yeah.
And so you said, just make it happen. So I was like, all right, I'll make it happen. And then after that was finished, and I decided, and I figured out the financial part and everything, it was like I had hope again for the first time in a really long time. I thought maybe this might work.
So we brought you in. What kind of state were you in when you arrived?
A disaster. I was very, very sick and broken and exhausted, just from everything, and a little crazy.
You were an IV drug user. How was that working out for you?
It wasn't. Like I said, I started using needles when I was 17. So by the time I hit 37, I had no veins left anywhere in my body except for my forehead. So I was injecting in my forehead. Like everything was gone. Even the backs of my fingers, I used all those. My neck, everything was not usable. So I was in another predicament there as well.
Yeah.
Because pretty soon I wasn't even going to be able to administer the drugs the way I wanted to.
Yeah. So we had medical tests done on you before you arrived. We had a nurse come into the house, and then we gave you some Ibogaine. Tell me about your Ibogaine experience.
Okay, during that time, I think it was just there was so much leading up to it. I don't really remember the actual experience that much. I mean, I knew I was on drugs for sure, like my vision. I had some visuals and just light things like that. My body was so shaky. But I don't remember the journey itself really that much. And I'm positive it's because the Ibogaine was working on healing sort of the physiological, like neurochemical stuff that was going on and kind of the spiritual and emotional and psychological part of it. I wasn't prepared to even like receive it because I just was such a fucking mess.
Yeah. But then, Ibogaine's not easy. It was hard for a few days.
It was hard for like more than a few days, but it was worth it.
Yeah. So you came out the other end,
Yeah.
and how's your life been since?
My life has changed into something that I never even dreamed it was possible to have. I didn't even know that I could live and be happy.
You stayed on the phone with me quite a bit. We always say you can stay in touch with us at Liberty Root.
It's the only thing that kept me alive at first.
Yeah,
is that connection.
There were some times where you felt like using, but you didn't. You called me and my business partner, and we.
Yes. For the first time ever, I actually picked a phone up.
Yeah.
Because I never did that before, because it might mean that someone might try and stop me from getting it.
Yeah. And then I'll say, the other aspect of you is you took my advice. Like if I recommended you read a book, you read the book. If I recommended you implement some daily activities to make sure you're moving life forward, you did all of that stuff. So I saw all of that and saw that you would be a value to have around here. We have a rule that, if you take Ibogaine with us and you want to work with us, you got to be at least a year clean. So you were, I think, more than a year clean. We started having you work around here. You've been a great asset around here. And then recently, just last week, you took some more Ibogaine.
Yes.
Why did you take more Ibogaine?
I think this whole thing is obviously a learning process and figuring out how to handle things without drugs. I have almost 3 years. That's really not that long. After 20 years, pretty much, of using. So that's just a fraction of that time. And I started using when I was so young. I had no life skills, like without dope or alcohol, right? So, anyways, I had some things come up in the last 6 months or so. I had a hard time. Lots of people do. Shit happens in life. And it just seemed, and things kind of happened in succession. And I didn't maybe do some of the things that I should have been doing to take care of myself. And I felt that for the first time, since the beginning, right after Ibogaine, I struggled a bit. But after that, I've been on a pretty good roll, feeling good. But some trauma came up from my past and that I haven't dealt with. And I started to feel fractured again. And so I knew that I needed to do medicine. Yeah. Because that's the only thing that's ever helped me in the past.
So you had a much lower dose than was required for your detox. Yeah. Still a significant amount of Ibogaine, though. And what happened when you took that medicine the other day?
I had one of the greatest days of my life. Ibogaine can open a dialogue that allows very frank, and questions about yourself and what you need. And it can offer reassurance that everyone needs reassurance at certain times in their life that they're good enough, or they're doing the right thing, or whatever. And I was really close to relapsing, and I didn't even realize it. It also showed me that as well, that how insidious that disease is that wants to kill you. You know, I said to Trevor the other day, at one point in time, I remember thinking, I wonder what it would be like to thinking about getting high. And that's fucking scary to me. Like, that's that beginning of it, you know. So I did this, so I knew I had all this baggage, you know, that I really didn't address. I was just trying to get through figuring out how to, like, live. Really live. And, so it was about letting go of all of that, letting go of that sort of, some of that grief, and sort of addressing or looking at, figuring out how to approach some of that trauma and release it as well. So I'm on Ibogaine, and I have this letting go kind of thing, and this is what the journey is about, and thinking slowly and taking my time and thinking from my heart. That was a big aspect of it, is letting my heart lead me and not my head, because as is a perfect example, my head cannot be me. It can be that other me that I don't want in there. Mm-hmm. So anyways, I'm there, and I'm all this letting go and sort of releasing. And I went through this metamorphosis of some sort, where it started off as though my whole body was scales, kind of like a snake. Mm-hmm. And each scale was just like coming off and floating into the air, like sort of rapidly in succession with the music that was playing. And it was like molting, you know, that part. And then I went through sort of a fire cleansing, and I could feel the heat, and I could feel the layers of hurt, kind of in pain, sort of melting away. Then I got frozen to sort of maybe solidify that, what had just went on. And then after that stage, my feet turned into roots and went right into the ground. And I turned into this huge, beautiful tree. And I could feel each branch coming through my fingers and becoming all of the branches. And I could feel the wind in the trees. Wow. It was amazing. And then all the leaves slowly started to fall back down to the ground. You know, and like a cycle had just totally happened. Wow. It was a trip.
It was a trip.
Yeah. But I feel today now, I mean, I learned exactly kind of how dangerous it can be to drop some of the necessary precautions you need to take to make sure that doesn't happen again. You know, I was seeing a counselor at first, especially, and then I just kind of felt better. I wasn't doing that. You know, it's so important to take everything you can and use it. And that's what Ibogaine does too, is it gives you the space to figure out what all your tools are and start to use them before and without feeling post-acute withdrawal like you would be normally. Mm-hmm. So.
Cool. Any final words?
I'm just so grateful for this medicine and for Liberty Root, you know. So, this prohibition needs to end. People are dying, and Ibogaine needs to be available to people who need it. This is an actual solution. It's not a Band-Aid, you know. Mm-hmm. So
awesome. Love you.
Love you.
So that was Star Morrison, my star in my life for sure. That was a little bit about Ibogaine, and moreover, that was about the therapeutic use of a drug that has been termed psychedelic. Psychedelic means soul manifesting. So manifesting your soul is a very good thing. So, you know, the purpose of doing these videos is to Number one, look at Prohibition and look at how Prohibition isn't serving us, and hopefully change the dialogue around Prohibition a little bit. Number two, look at the crisis that Prohibition is creating, specifically around opioids and the deaths that that's causing. Number three, look at Ibogaine as a potential solution. It's not going to work for everybody, but it needs to be made available to a lot more people than it is currently available for. These videos aren't about trying to get more business for myself. I've got way more business than I can handle already. Liberty Root is already at its max. I can't help any more people. The phone rings every day and I can't help everybody. So this isn't about putting more money into my pocket. This is about creating more awareness so that we can safely get Ibogaine into the hands of more people. And to look at psychedelic therapy overall. Ibogaine is not the only beneficial psychedelic. LSD, let's not forget that Sandoz Pharmaceutical invented LSD. It was sent out to psychologists and psychiatrists all around the world. And some of the best research was done in Weyburn, Saskatchewan by Humphrey Osment, the guy that coined the term psychedelic. He, in Saskatchewan, under Tommy Douglas's governance, they did amazing work. They had a more than 50% success rate treating alcoholism across thousands of people. So alcoholism is still something that, AA and NA, the meta-studies, the meta-studies, the studies of studies show that AA and NA have no more than a 10% success rate. So LSD was having a 56% success rate right here in Canada back in the 60s. That needs to be looked at again. We need to get rid of the stigma that the propaganda of the war on drugs has drilled into us, because we have been sorely misled around the use of psychedelics in a therapeutic context. I'm going to do another video maybe tomorrow. I'm going to go into a bit of a PowerPoint presentation on some more specifics about Ibogaine itself. Then I will be doing a PowerPoint presentation on what I call psychedelic entrepreneurship, which is how to manifest your soul into an undertaking, because I think if we had more people following a passionate pet project and trying to help the world, I think there's a lot of good that could be done. Because, as I said yesterday, the current leadership structure, the way the leadership above us is kind of entrenched in their old ways, it's not serving us. We need regular people to step up to the plate and make a difference. And I think one of the avenues we can do that to make an incredible difference in thousands and thousands of lives, if not all lives, is through looking at the safe and responsible use of psychedelic therapy. So thank you so much for tuning in. Again, please share this video. Let's get the word out there. I'll be doing a few more. And thanks so much to Star. You want to say hi again?
Okay, have a nice day, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Please share the video. Take care, guys.